And hello there, rather early friend. Today is a bit of a special day. I wanted to make a video about something very dear to me. Something that happened recently. I wanted to talk about my process, what happened. I finally finished a novel this year. This year's been very rough. It's been a year full of a lot of heartbreak and a lot of hardships. Not only for me, also for the people around me, and for really what feels like the world in general. I'm gonna be talking about what happened, all that whole, usual deal. Quick disclaimer before I go on anywhere. If I look a little red, it is due to our red curtains, and not at all due to the fact that it's really hot today for some reason. It's like the end of the year and it's still mildly hot. It's okay. We're gonna figure it out. And I'm also gonna try to keep it pretty brief, because heaven knows that I can most definitely ramble. It's a little bright on that side for you, Slowpoke. Here we go. So, let's take it from the top. What? I did it. I finished writing a novel. This year's been really rough. For a lot of personal reasons. And also because, I don't know, the world feels like it's on fire all the time. And heaven knows that hasn't really slowed down. But at least I've been able to, I don't want to say ignore it, but I guess focus on my own particular goals. And I wanted to get back to finishing stories because it's been a while. And I know, because I get messages, Max, when is this book coming out? And when is this happening? When is the next one coming out? And trust me, nobody wants those books done more than I do. And I'm really happy that I finally managed to just write the whole thing out. And it was kind of a really sweet day. And a part of me didn't want it to be special, but I found myself going back to the coffee shop where I finished my first book. And I went there. Little's changed in that place, and I want to believe that little's changed in me. And I finished it. I was going about on Twitter about how I was worried that the book was gonna go long, and that I was gonna have to spend an extra day, and that I was gonna lose momentum, because in my schedule there is like 3 days where like I can't write because I have other things that I have to take care of, like videos and stuff like that. And I was like, if I don't finish it today, either A, videos are gonna get delayed a whole week, because I don't want to have to wait 3 days to write the ending of the story. That will just kill the momentum of the story. And I was worried about that. I was so worried about that. And, as always, the things we often worry about tend to be not relevant at all. I finished the book on that final sitting in that coffee shop. I finished it. It didn't even go that long. And I remember sitting there, like, the story was done. I put the last words in hopefully the right place. And I remember thinking to myself, shouldn't it be longer? I mean, it was a short, when I say short, I don't mean like 300 words. It was like several pages. But it was a short and sweet epilogue. And I was sitting there going, I'm pretty sure I forgot to describe something. And I'm pretty sure I forgot to say what happened to X character and Y character. I'm pretty sure I forgot to say something. But that's the first draft, though. And I sat there looking at that final page, and I realized that it was over. And that was awesome. I haven't felt that way in forever. You know that feeling? And I know a lot of you do, because it's a writerly thing. That feeling of, I just can't finish books. I can't finish anything. I must be unable to do that. And those are self-defeating thoughts, or thoughts of self-defeat. Because if you keep telling yourself those things, you will believe those things, and you won't finish stories, and they'll become reality. As opposed to just a way of looking at the world and thinking. And there's a P5 reference I want to make right now, and that's called aesthetics. Oh my god. That joke is for like 2 people out there. Anyhow, it's about how you look at things. And for me, I was really worried that a part of me thought that I wasn't able to finish stories anymore. And I know that it's silly to think about that, especially because I run a writing advice YouTube channel, and all I need to do is just think of what I would say if someone asked me that question. I would tell them, of course you can finish stories. Just sit down and push through. And I'm going over my experience this first draft, and I'm like, what did I do differently? I didn't. I mean, the things that I did do differently, and I have a note, and I have it's here in my notes. I was handwriting, which really helped me push through. I started so many stories this year. I started so many stories that the guilt was like part of the force I was fighting. Cause okay, you know, when you spend a lot of time brainstorming a story, and you have the characters, and you love them, and you write like the first chapter, and it doesn't work. And then you're like, okay, maybe I should pause, and then you wait a couple of days, and then you have lost all momentum. And then you think to yourselves, okay, I'll just take these characters and put them in a different story. And you brainstorm that, and you outline that, and you sit down, and the first couple of chapters, and it doesn't work. Or something gets in the way, or you slow down, or you lose momentum. And the next thing you know, you repeat that process, rinse and repeat probably like 3-4 times, and you have no idea what the hell you have in your hands anymore. You look at these characters that were from a different world, in a different dimension, with different backgrounds and a different story, and everything is kind of a mess. I kind of found myself in that very same situation about like a month ago. 2 months ago? A month and a half. I found myself in that situation right there, where I had a character and a situation, and I had no idea how I had gotten myself in there. And a part of me, to be entirely honest, I was like, am I having fun? Or do I really just feel guilty for these characters that I found, whose stories I didn't get to tell? And the reality was that it was just guilt. I don't know how I got here. But if you feel guilty, it's okay to let go of characters. It's okay to maybe revisit them later. There's one story idea that some of my close writerly friends know, because I told them on Discord, and that story might come back, because there is enough there for a good like novella. There's a novella in there. I'm not trying to like elevate myself, but there's like a Carrie-like novel in that story idea, and I think I can grab that. But it's gonna have to wait. Maybe next time. I don't know. But if you're feeling in that moment, 1, stop guilting yourself, and 2, yes, you can finish stories. I thought I couldn't, but then again, when you think about it, when you reflect on things like this, you realize that these are just chains. Habits. Bad habits, good habits. Chains you want to break and chains you want to reinforce. And it was funny, because when I was sitting there with the final page, and I was feeling that usual sadness that I hadn't felt in a long time, since the last time I finished a story that is complete. Like a story that it's done right there. I don't think I'm going to revisit these characters. I left them in a good place in their stories. And I was sitting there feeling slightly sad and slightly happy. Happy because I did it. I was proud of myself. Sad because that story's over. And that world that kind of pulled me along for so many weeks was kind of closed. The next time that I revisit it is going to be a different Max. A different version of me. It's going to look through that and it's going to make that story the best it can possibly be, but it's not going to be the same. I'm not going to be visiting that story like it's the first time. I'm not going to be discovering that world with childlike wonder in my eyes. It's going to be different. And that's a little bit sad. But that sadness is completely outweighed by the happiness that I did it. I broke the chain. And I want to reinforce the good habit of finishing stories. I want to get back to doing that. I did it now. I have a couple of small projects coming up. Keep an eye on my Twitter if you want to know about them. Now, it's hard for me, especially because I'm really close to the book right now, to think of lessons to give you, or things that I learn. I got a question recently about world building. And another question about, like, how do you decide what's going to go into your story before you start writing it? And while I think both of these questions are important, especially for someone who hasn't gone through the process all the way through, because you don't know, and not knowing can feel terrifying, especially when you jump into the blank page. You want to have all the answers, but you can't have all the answers. And to both of those questions, how do you know what should be in your story, what shouldn't be in your story when you're in the act of writing? I always go with my gut feeling. I always go with what the story is telling me. When I'm writing, I don't question it. I just put it in the paper. I've made this comparison before, but this is why I mean, I don't wish it on everyone because it's really hard and it's really stressful, but I wish everyone got a chance to be a game master / dungeon master, because this is the act of writing in life form. In live form as well. You've got players who are characters, who are actual characters and themselves, and you cannot control them. You cannot put words in their mouth. You can show up there. You can show up to a pen and paper role-playing session with the entire story planned in your head. I'm sorry, Mike Chan. You can show up there with the entire story in your head, in paper, in an outline, and the character and one of your characters can open their mouth for the first time and say something that ruins everything. Chaos is the natural form of writing. Utter disaster for the outline is the natural form of writing and storytelling. And when you have experienced that, you can embrace it. So, when someone asks me, oh, I have a character that is like this, should I make them like this or like that? I can't decide. And one, go with your gut feeling. And when your gut tells you nothing, go with whichever one would be the most fun to write. Primarily because when you're having fun, and when the story's pulling you along, and when you want to write, you get stories finished. That right there. And so when we tell you, oh, but the fun thing may not be the most effective for storytelling. Yeah, but stories that are finished are better than stories that don't get finished. So that's my take on that. Also, you can always revise these things out later, or make them better, make them stronger. But people don't get to revise stories that are not finished. If you don't get that first draft done, you can't revise it, you can't publish it, you can't put it out there into the world, and people can't find it, people can't read it. It's a process, and I know someone out there is like, there's no way I'm jumping into writing without an outline, and I don't either. I am very light on the outline parts. But for that question about world building, because someone was asking, Max, how do you do world building? And I assume they mean, how do you create the worlds for your stories? And I'm going to tell you something. I come into the blank page with an idea. Because in the outline, because if you have seen my guide to how to plan a novel, link in the description down below. If you haven't, you should go watch it. It's a 1-hour workshop. I tell you everything I know, how I do things, how I actually do things. There's no secrets there. That is my favorite video I've ever done. But when I brainstorm, I come up with the places I think the story may somehow hopefully require, and I think about them. And I kind of build like a small mental image. But it's not the rules. It's not the blueprint. It's definitely not the Bible for how the story should be. And the reason for that is because things change. Think about it as meeting a person in real life. You can make an impression of them, but you don't know what they're all about. They could surprise you. They could be exactly like you expected them to, but they will most likely surprise you. Or, I guess, to get us back to that role-playing analogy, you can plan out what everything's gonna be like. But the real players, the real characters, the spotlight is on the players, on the characters. And whatever they say is true. And if they get in the way, your outline's wrong, and they're right. Now that's a little bit more radical than I wanted it to be. But let me just tell you what happened with my world building. When I jumped into that story, let me just tell you, it has a very particular world. It's very specific, with very specific rules, and a very specific way that people move from part of the world to part of the world. Yes, it is very cryptic, mostly because I don't know what's gonna stay and what's gonna get chopped out. Foreshadowing for the following rest of my answer. The reality of that world changed as I was writing it. Because just like you meet your characters as you write them, I was meeting the world as I was writing them. With new eyes, with childlike wonder, you could say. I was experiencing that world for the first time. And there were things that had a name at the beginning. In chapter 1 and 2 they're called something. But then by chapter 3 I realized, okay, that's not actually what they're called. The characters have told me what they're called. And this is what they're called. And you know what you do then? You don't go back and fix it. You make a note and you keep on writing. You're never gonna finish stories if you go back to fix something the instant you realize it was wrong. You're never gonna finish stories. Keep moving forward. Especially because you never know if later on you realize, wait a minute, I was wrong in my assessment. That happened in this first draft too. There was a thing about a place. Okay, this is not, I don't have to make this cryptic. There was a part of this, there was a scene that required a field, a grass field, but grass doesn't make sense for this place. So in my revision notes, I said, make it a dirt field, like the ones I knew back from when I was a kid in Mexico. But then 3 chapters later, I realized no, synthetic grass would make a lot more sense, and we get to keep the whole idea of it being kind of looking like grass. So I was like, you know what? Ignore what Max said on this other chapter. Make it synthetic grass instead, and that's part of the process. It's a give and take. You don't know the story, especially not when you're writing it. The whole revision process is to make sure that everything is even out, that everything makes sense, that what you introduced rings through all the way from the beginning to the end. That's revision in a nutshell. And for me, that's second nature. For me, it's because I've gone through this before. For me, it's second nature to know, yeah, okay, yeah, when I'm in the middle of writing, something's gonna come up. I'm gonna realize that that city is not called what I thought it was called, or that the structure of the world is not as I had intended it, or that organization really doesn't make sense on its own, so I'm gonna merge it with this other organization. In the first draft, Max really wanted there to be an educational police called the EduPol, but I realized in the act of writing that it kind of didn't make sense, so I'm gonna merge it with another group. It's part of the process. For me, it's second nature, but for someone out there who hasn't gone through this the entire way through, it may seem terrifying, and almost it might make you feel like you're doing it wrong. To arrive at the blank page and feel the tug of the story. You said that in this city, only elves lived in this city. But then a character tells you, oh no, in the lower classes, in the slums, you could say this other fantasy race lives. Because of this and that reason. And a part of you may think, no, I made the outline. I worked it out. This race doesn't live here, they live there. Because of this other reason. And if you ever feel that, if you ever feel the story tugging you, pulling you different places, do me a favor and always follow the story. Always follow the organic change, the pull, the way in which the story itself takes form. Always go with that. That's the gut feeling. Whatever outline you made, whatever thoughts you had before, they don't matter. Because you had them before you were in the magical alchemy that is writing. Transfixing. Synthesizing. Words. Thoughts into words. And words into images. That came out really fancy. Except for me messing up the word synthesize. Synthesize. Hey there, everybody. Are these all the things I wanted to talk about in this video? Yes, I did. Oh, one more thing. Hey there, everybody. Thank you to everyone for your patience, especially during these last months. Videos are back. Life is finally moving forward. I'm finding ways to record even though our curtains are red and they make my face look way more red than it actually is. Except when I get embarrassed, in which case it's just true to life. I want to say one more thing though. If you're out there, if you are right now working through a month-long challenge like National Novel Writing Month, if you are working through a game jam or a self-imposed challenge of any kind, if you're trying to build the chain, to reinforce it, to make those good habits, you can do it. You got this. Is it scary? Is it hard? Absolutely. Is it worth it? No question. It seems the hardest when you're in the midst of doing it. When you get it done, when you form that first link, you're gonna look back and say, huh, Why did I think it was so hard? It's just a matter of hard work and dedication. The things that get anything done in this world. Hard work and dedication. Okay. Thank you for watching this video. Once again, it went way longer than I wanted it to. Every time I'm like, you know, I'm gonna make this video like 5 minutes. I'm gonna get all my thoughts out in 5 minutes. The next thing I know, it's 20 minutes later, but that's fine. By now, this happy accident, I assume, is part of the reason you enjoy my content. And I am more than proud, glad even, to keep telling you my silly adventures and my advice and my opinion and what works for me. Thank you so much for so many years of letting me do this, watching my content, leaving comments. Those of you who are my Patreons, and all the ones that joined last month, thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are actually making a huge difference. And if someone out there is going, yo, Max, you're telling me that I can watch your videos early for $1 a month? How much is that even? That's more than YouTube would ever give me, coming from one single person alone. Talking about that, I have a Patreon. You get to watch my videos 1 week in advance. You can literally go right now and watch next week's videos right now for $1 a month. I also have a bunch of other perks. My Patreon is going to get reworked relatively soon, but that basic tier is not going anywhere. I'm going to be reworking it into a couple of other things, but that's another project for later. For now, though, my plan remains pretty much the same. Tell stories and share them with the world. Thank you for tagging along. On the screen right now, as we're rolling into the formal outro, I want to let you know that there is a playlist up here, a button to subscribe up here. If this is somehow your first time watching me, hey there, my name is Max. I do writing and advice videos twice a week right now. Also, my Patreon is over there, here, and there's a link to my other channel with my best friend Kitty, where we play games, we review anime, and we're very, very, very silly people. More of this silliness over here. Thank you for tagging along. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me. Fan helps help. There you go. Thank you. And you can do it. You got this. That challenge may be the biggest mountain, but you can climb it one step at a time.